Our Lord begins addressing his disciples by saying that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. This is very noteworthy, especially when we consider the fact that at the time of our Lord, the scribes and the Pharisees, they were the ones that people looked up to. They were the ones that people esteemed. Oh, they're so religious. But our Lord is saying that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So we know the scribes and the Pharisees were very good about observing the external precepts of the law. In other words, outwardly, they looked good. Outwardly, they did everything that they were supposed to do. They were the ones who, when they would go to worship God, they would look so pious and but in reality, in their heart, there was a lot of corruption, a lot of lack of charity. And so what we see our Lord doing in today's gospel reading, he's internalizing the law. He's saying, well, you have said that, it's wrong to murder, but then he goes on to say, well, even if you're angry with a brother or sister, you're going to be liable to judgment. If you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. Even if you say someone you're a fool, you will be liable to the hell of fire. So in other words, what is our attitude towards our neighbor? Not just externally. Sure, we can put on a nice face and pretend to like someone, but what's in our heart? Our Lord is saying we need to look at what's in our heart. It's not enough to just go through the motions. We have to change our heart. Our heart has to be filled with love. And, when it comes to, our Lord addressing this commandment of not killing and basically extending that commandment and internalizing that commandment, well, it's not just having a negative attitude towards our neighbor, but the reality is to truly love our neighbor, to see our neighbor as ourselves. And recall when Christ is asked, well, who is my neighbor? And he talks about, the story of the Good Samaritan, right? The man who was left for dead, right? In other words, those who are most in need. And so often we just walk by. And not just, when it's physical need, like people who are hungry or there's natural disasters, catastrophes, we can easily see that. But when there's a spiritual need, we're often blind to that. We don't recognize that spiritual need, but we should. Because so many people in today's world, they don't have any faith. In other words, they're spiritually hungry. They're spiritually starving for the truth, but there's no one to present them with the truth. So we need to practice charity. And notice how our Lord goes on to say, when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Now, this was during the time of the temple when animal sacrifices were still being offered. So our Lord is addressing the people of that time, but he's also addressing us. And I want to get at that. But you see, here's the thing. No matter how great a gift you are offering on the altar, right? No matter how much it cost you for that animal or how precious that animal is, what's in the heart is more important. Because your gift, no matter how great it is, unless your heart is in the right place, your gift is not going to be acceptable to God. So once again, it's kind of reiterating the same thing. What is the disposition of our heart? And then he says, be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gifts. So if your brother or sister has something against you, in other words, we may have done something to offend someone. And because of that, someone has a grudge against us. So yes, we need to apologize. We need to be reconciled with that person. Very often people say, oh, Father, I've tried, and the person just won't forgive me. Then you've done all you can. And sometimes it's actually recommended that in certain cases you don't even reconcile, that you don't even apologize, because the person is not that close to you, and bringing up the issue kind of might just make things worse. So we have to be prudent, but the ideal is that we try to avoid doing wrong. We try to avoid offending our neighbor. And when it comes to us offering our sacrifice on the altar, well, what is our sacrifice? We offer the sacrifice of Calvary at every Mass. And we participate in this sacrifice you know, the laity has the common priesthood and the ordained priests have the ministerial priesthood. So it's only the priest who can confect the sacrament, who can make the sacrifice present, but you all participate in that sacrifice. And at the offertory, we unite all of our prayers, all of our sufferings well borne, everything, right? We just offer it up in union with Jesus on the cross. And so we focus on Jesus on the cross. But you see, the key is that we have pure hearts when we make this offering. And this is why it's so important for us to be reconciled with our neighbor, or if we have anything against anyone, to let go of that grudge, of that anger, or that resentment, so that our hearts are pure. In other words, the sacrifice of Calvary, its value is infinite. But how much we receive, or how much we are able to apply the sacrifice of the Mass for those whom we offer the Mass, depends upon the purity of our heart, the charity within our heart. The greater the charity, the greater the amount of grace that we will receive from the sacrifice of the Mass, and the greater will be the amount of graces that we are able to draw down upon the person or persons that we are offering the Mass for. Now, here's a very interesting thing. You know, when somebody has a grudge against someone and you come to Mass and we're offering the sacrifice of the Mass, keep in mind what our Lord did on the cross. He gave his life and he took the sins of everyone upon himself, including that particular person that you might hate or that particular person that you have a grudge against. So in other words, you cannot offer the sacrifice of the Mass if you are not also offering it for that person and desiring the salvation of that person. So it's the only way we can truly participate in the sacrifice of the Mass. Otherwise, we have to take our Lord's words more seriously, you know. Leave your gift there before the altar and go first be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. So in other words, we have to understand that the Mass is for everyone. Those who persecute us, our enemies, everyone. Those who have hurt us, those people that we dislike or do not like, well, we are called to love them. Not necessarily to be their friends, not necessarily to be buddies with them or to be close with them, but to truly love them. So this is what it means to participate in the sacrifice of the Mass, the ideal for which we strive for in regards to how we should participate in the Mass. Just a couple of announcements. We will have a funeral this Saturday for Evelyn Serapio. Visitation is at the Chapel Ridge Funeral Home on Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. May her soul and the souls of all the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. Tomorrow is the solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, so it's not a day of abstinence, it's a day of feasting, of rejoicing. And on Saturday, we celebrate the Immaculate Heart of Our Lady, and the Legion of Mary of our parish will be conducting a living rosary at 4 p.m. That's on Saturday. And on Sunday, after the 12 noon Mass, we will have a procession in honor of St. Anthony. We will be walking on the streets, so we have permission to do that. So hopefully you can join us for that.